Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media, and welcome to the 9th episode of Shelf Space. This is the series where I take a look at 3 items from my physical media collection, and I ask the simple question, are these worth the space that they're taking up on the shelf? Today we have 3 movies here, of course. First up, we will talk about 1999's Deep Blue Sea, this beautiful new release from Arrow on 4K, and then Companion on 4K, and then we'll jump down to some DVD, and we'll look at a movie that, frankly, I had no idea what it was really about until recently, Deep Rising. So 3 movies to get through today. Let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into Shelf Space, Episode 9. So we'll get started with one of my favorite shark movies of all time. Of course, we're talking Deep Blue Sea from 1999, directed by Renny Harlin. So this release here is the new one from Arrow Video, and this is the 4K release of this. And this thing is gorgeous. So you can see this is the box that it comes in. There is the back of the box, and the front just looks like the slipcover there. I have taken things out of it already just to prep a little bit. There is the reversible cover art, which is going to be the original, well, I assume the original theatrical poster art. This is kind of the art that I'm familiar with the movie. And then the special features on the back. Inside, you have some artwork on the disc, which looks gorgeous. And then you have a few different postcards here. There's the shark and then the group and a really great photo there. I love that moment. And then on the back, you can see there's different sayings or phrases on the back along with a bloody handprint, which is just super cool. And then you do get a poster, which is, I'm not going to open the whole thing. It is the same poster artwork that you've seen previously. And then on the other side, actually, this is not the same poster. Excuse me. Let me show here. So this is what it looks like. Not getting the best image there, but you get a good idea. I think it looks awesome. Very reminiscent of what is on the disc artwork, which is really cool. And then you have the original theatrical poster on the back of that. So then, last but not least, with this release, you also get this book right here, which is really cool. And of course, it's Arrow. These are all full color booklets, as you can see here. And it's awesome, filled with a number of different essays for the movie. So, I mean, right off the bat, let me just say it, like, if you're a fan of this movie, one, you probably already picked this up, but if you haven't, you definitely need to because it is an excellent release from Arrow Video. But that said, this is a movie about smart sharks, essentially. Chances are you already know what this one is about, so I'll be quick. But this group of researchers, they are at this point living underground in the ocean because they are trying to genetically enhance sharks in order to find a cure for Alzheimer's. Well, of course, if things weren't going to go wrong, we wouldn't be watching a movie about it, but with this one, what happens is the genetically altering these sharks makes them smarter than they typically would be. And one of the first ways we kind of get that is that a shark swims backwards, which I guess sharks don't do. Now, as long as I've loved this movie, I've never actually looked that up before. I don't know if that's a true fact on sharks, if they don't swim backwards or not. But in this movie world, at least, sharks don't swim backwards. So that's kind of their first cue that something is different here. And of course, they are going to attack the base, the underground base that they're all in, and all hell is going to break loose. And it is just one of the most fun shark movies I've ever seen in my life. I've loved it since I watched it back in probably, I don't know, if it wasn't 99, it was 2000, 2001. Very recent to its release in theaters, and it's just such a fun movie. So I think the acting is just great across the board. LL Cool J plays a chef in this, and he is just such a fun character to watch this. His best friend is this bird, and their relationship is fantastic as the movie progresses. I love Samuel L. Jackson in this, is great. He's kind of the money guy on top of all this, so people don't really like him when he comes in, but he does what he can to kind of ingratiate himself in there. Hopefully that's the right word I was thinking of.
Nailed it on the first guess.
And then, of course, just some of the death scenes in this are fantastic throughout. I'm not going to give any spoilers, of course, about who lives or who dies, but the special effects on this are incredible. The water, the way it kind of overtakes the base is just done so well. I love the use of color. Rennie Harlan does such an excellent job with that. In the beginning of the movie, you get all these oranges, and it really plays up in this 4K release. You get all these oranges in the sky and everything, because you're kind of on the like the upper part where it's above water, and it looks incredible. And then once the sharks start breaking through the base, it's just the blues take over in this movie. That whole theme of the orange above water and then blue underneath, it's kind of an obvious choice, right? But it works really well here. This is just one of my favorites when it comes to this genre of movie. Jaws is obviously the more iconic film, and arguably the better film if you're just going to look at it from just a film standpoint. But for my money, I go back and watch Deep Blue Sea more than I watch Jaws. Like, I just love this film so much. I think it's just such a blast to watch. So if you haven't seen it, you're just doing yourself a disservice if you like shark movies like this. It is just one of my favorites out there. So fantastic job by Arrow Video. The Dolby Atmos track on this is really well done as well. It just rumbled our house. On top of that, let me also add that as loud as the special effects were, I will admit, with this release, I found the dialogue was maybe turned, I don't know necessarily intentionally, but it felt turned down a little bit. And so there were moments where I was really struggling to hear some of that dialogue. Now, it's nothing egregious, nothing that's going to ruin your experience with the movie. And honestly, it could have just been my setup. It's hard to tell because I only have the one real Dolby Atmos setup to try it with. But that's my experience with it. So I wanted to just point that out here. I don't know if others have shared that or not, but the dialogue does feel a bit lower than the special effects in this. But really, you're watching it for the explosions and the big crazy shark action anyway, so not really the end of the world there. But the release on this looks fantastic, the best I've ever seen it. I, of course, watched it originally on DVD. I owned the Blu-ray in a multi-pack behind me, and now I have the 4K, and this is without a doubt the best I've ever seen this. It looks so good. The use of color really pops in this 4K release. So highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it, or if you love the movie and you don't own it, no reason not to. It's a fantastic release from Arrow, as we've come to expect at this point. So highly recommend this one. I'm going to give Deep Blue Sea 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's just a fantastic film. And is this worth the shelf space? Obviously. I love this movie, and this is the best release we'll probably ever see of this. So Deep Blue Sea is definitely staying on my shelf. So this DVD will be the meat of my 4K sandwich in today's episode. We'll move over to Deep Rising next. This is from 1998, directed by Stephen Sommers. Like I said in the intro, I really had no idea what this movie was. I thought it was just another kind of generic action movie from the late 90s. Honestly, I always put this one in something of a vein of like Armageddon or Deep Impact or something like that. I thought that's the type of movie this was, more of a disaster film, but that's not really what it is at all. This is an action movie with a sci-fi tilt to it, because where with Deep Blue Sea, we get smart sharks, here we get some smart octopi, essentially. This one is a creature feature, much like Deep Blue Sea. We are following Treat Williams. He is our main character here, and he is taking this group of armed mercenaries, essentially, somewhere. He doesn't know where he's going, but he's agreed to take them there. No questions asked, supposedly. Well, it turns out they're going to this luxury cruise liner, and they are planning to rob it and get the money out of it. But things are not going to go according to plan, because once they arrive, the ship is just completely empty, or so it appears. And so they need to figure out what's going on. Can they still steal what they wanted to steal? And so on. Alongside Treat Williams, we get Famke Janssen in our main female role here. Really, there's only 2 women in this that have any significance at all, and Famke Janssen is one of them, and she is fantastic in this. I think she is a bit underrated at this point. I hear almost nothing about her now, 20 years after she was like super relevant, and I think that's just a shame, because she was so great back then and has such an incredible screen presence. I feel like, she could probably still be doing that today. Maybe she is, I just don't realize it. I just don't see her very often anymore. But anyway, that aside, I think those two together do such a good job. While I was watching this, though, I just couldn't help but think, Treat Williams does a good job, but man, what if somebody like Kurt Russell was in this? I feel like that would have just elevated this movie up even more than it already is. But turns out Harrison Ford was supposed to play the leading role in this, but for some reason he backed out and Treat Williams ended up stepping in. And at that point, the budget ended up going down a significant amount, which is a shame because this movie with an even bigger budget, oh my God, this would have been just probably an all-timer from that era. It would probably rank up with Deep Blue Sea as one of my favorites in this subgenre of the creature feature from that era. But still, what they have here, they're able to do an incredible job with. The special effects in this, I think, do a really good job, especially the practical effects. It's led by Rob Bottin. I don't know how to say his name exactly. I've always said Rob Bottin, but that might not be right. But he's the same guy who did the practical effects for The Thing, which is one of the all-time greats when it comes to special effects. And he does a really good job here as well. Now, admittedly, they do go a lot more CGI heavy here than something like The Thing. But, it's quite 15, 16 years later. So, of course, they are. But what he does, I think he manages to do a great job with. And even the CGI. For being a late 90s movie, it's not terrible. Honestly, I don't think it's bad at all. I think they held up, remarkably well for what it is. But the whole movie itself is just such an interesting premise. Me and my family, we love to go on cruises. And so, seeing a cruise ship just be empty when it's supposed to be filled with people is interesting in and of itself. But knowing how that happened, because that's a bit of the introduction of the film, we learn how that happens. And I think it's just so much fun to watch because it just goes crazy. So I just really enjoyed this one a heck of a lot more than I expected. My only complaint is that I only own the DVD. The Blu-ray, if I'm not mistaken when I looked, I think the Blu-ray is out of print at this point, which is a very disappointing. So this one is just begging for a 4K upgrade. And if it gets it, I will absolutely be doing that upgrade because this was 20 times better than I ever would have expected it to be. I loved our main characters in this. The story is engaging and entertaining. The bad guys in this are so interesting and fun to watch as well. It just makes for an entertaining popcorn flick from the late 90s. And that's exactly what you would expect for something like this. So even though I only have the DVD, this is absolutely staying on my shelf for the time being. Once I can upgrade to the 4K, which fingers crossed that happens at some point down the line, I'll definitely be doing this. Oh, that's right. I was going to say, the back here, it says Die Hard meets Aliens meets Titanic, or meets Alien meets Titanic. That's an interesting description of this. I would say it felt like Speed 2 meets Deep Blue Sea. That was my kind of description of this, or comparison to this movie. So if you like those, you'll probably get a kick out of this one. But such a fun movie, one that I highly recommend if you haven't seen it for some reason, and one that is definitely staying on my shelf and worth the space. But I am going to give Deep Rising from 1998 3.5 out of 5 stars. Such a fun movie, which is kind of the theme of the day here. Last but not least in today's episode is going to be Companion from 2025, directed by Drew Hancock. So I'll say right at the top here, I'm not going to give any spoilers, any things that I would consider a spoiler, because anything I'll talk about you can get really on the back of the box here or just by looking at the cover art. But that said, some people might consider what I'll say about this a spoiler. So if you want to know nothing about it at all, don't look at this and don't watch this part of the video. But that said, I will continue on here. Everything I'll talk about is basically, in terms of like the plot and things like that, is just what I knew about the movie coming into it. That's why I don't really consider it a spoiler, and it didn't ruin the film for me whatsoever. But that said, Companion from 2025, directed by Drew Hancock. This is an AI horror film. And of course it is. Number one, look at the box art. If that's not a robot, what the hell is? And number two, one of the special features is literally titled AI horror. Clearly, this is a robot horror film, right? Like, it's pretty obvious just by looking at those things. But anyway, that said, we are following our two main characters are Jake Quaid, which I thought was super cool to see in this. He, of course, is the boyfriend character from Scream 5. And frankly, it could be the same character. Like, his acting is pretty much the same in both of them. So if you liked him in Scream 5, you'll probably like him here. But if you didn't like him there, chances are you won't in this one either. But he is with Sophie Thatcher's character here, and she's great. I really started to fall for her recently because of watching Heretic. I thought she was excellent in. She was in The Boogeyman, which I watched last year. I thought she did a good job in, even though not my favorite horror movie. And then she was in Yellow Jackets as well, which my wife and I just finished up all 3 seasons a couple of days ago. And she just does an excellent job in everything I've seen her in, including Companion here. But anyway, they go with a group of their friends to this super nice house in the middle of nowhere owned by this very rich Russian guy. And a death happens, and that kind of sets things down this path of who did it, why did they do it, and what's going to be done about that person for doing it. And that's pretty much where I'll leave the plot, because I don't want to give any spoilers, anything that I would consider a major spoiler. So that said, I think the acting in this is very well done. As I've already mentioned, our 2 main characters are great with Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. They do a fantastic job throughout. Watching their relationship kind of progress throughout the film was a ton of fun as well, which, take a shot every time I say the word fun in this video. Like I said, though, that's really the theme of this. All 3 of these movies, they're just a good time. They're just fun to watch. Nothing that's going to really blow you away at all, but all 3 of these are just popcorn flicks, which there's a place for. There's always a place for, in my house anyway. We love those probably more than anything. But that said, I think the rest of the cast here does a really good job as well. And then kind of some of the things that are uncovered as the movie progresses, I found very fascinating. I didn't expect a number of those things to happen as the movie went on. So that's always fun when, even though you understand that you're watching an AI horror film, there's still things that can surprise you. I think that's, a nod to the writing there. So I think they did a nice job. Now, that said, this one, while it's a good movie, it doesn't really do anything that you wouldn't expect from an AI horror film. It kind of asks those same questions that are always brought up with this kind of new, very popular genre of horror. And that's fine, right? Like, it doesn't need to, but it would have been cool to see it kind of go some different places than what we've seen in the past. So while there's not a ton here that you could point to say, oh, wow, that's unique, I think what they did bring to the table, I think, is still a lot of fun to watch and just done well enough that makes it a worthwhile viewing. This one hasn't been getting a ton of love, I don't think, in the community, but I think it's a lot better than some have been saying, and it's absolutely worth the time. Not something that I might recommend jumping out. I bought this brand new on release day for whatever it was, about $30 or whatever, and maybe I didn't need to do that. I probably could have waited for a price drop on this one, watched it streaming first, and then picked it up on sale, which might be the way I'd recommend it. But I'm still happy to own it, and I did watch all of the 3 special features, 3 or 4, however many it is, on the back. Not super long and pretty bog standard for what you would expect, but this feels like one that, maybe 10, 15, 20 years even from now could get like a full boutique release where people really start appreciating it more than they do now. But I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it, mostly because of Sophie Thatcher. She's just a new favorite of mine, and so anything she's in, I'm willing to give a shot, and she is yet to disappoint. So Companion, I think, is a good, maybe not a great movie, but a lot of fun. There's that word again. So I am going to give Companion from 2025 3.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend seeing it, even if you don't have to run out and buy it, because that's the other thing. The disc itself, there's only those 3 special features. And while it looks and sounds good, I mean, the Blu-ray is going to look and sound good too, because it's a new film. But that said, I do think it's worth watching. So is this one worth the shelf space? Yes, for me it is. If I knew what I know now going into it, kind of like everything that the disc had to offer, I wouldn't have bought it for $30 or whatever it was when it released. I would have waited, but still happy to have it in the collection and one that I definitely will revisit in the future. So Companion, it's staying in the collection. All right, 3 more that will stay on the shelf, which, man, that's kind of the way this series has gone. I've gotten rid of very few that I've watched in this series, but stay tuned for the next episode. I don't even know what it's going to be about yet, but I know I'll have 3 more in the coming weeks here, so definitely stay tuned for episode 10 down the line. If there's anything that you see behind me that you want me to talk about, or anything I've done in my haul videos that you want to know specifically my thoughts on, leave that in the comments below, and then I can prioritize that for the next episode potentially. So that said, though, that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for checking this one out and making it all the way to the end here. That really does help me out. And with that said, before I let you go, I'll just encourage you all to consume some media today. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.